Hello, our names are Caitlin, Joe, and Emma, and we are Group 5. Today we will be discussing an article about learning and memory. The article in review is The Hippocampus, Perennial Cortex, and Complex Visual Discriminations in Rats and Humans by Hales, Broadbent, Valou, Squire, and Clark. They are affiliated with the University of California's Department of Psychiatry, Psychology, and Neuroscience, and also the Veterans Affairs San Diego. The purpose of the study was to gain further information about the perennial cortex and its contribution to visual perception. Previous research has suggested that the perennial cortex is consequential to both visual perception and memory, especially when making visual discriminations between stimuli with high ambiguity. Damage to medial temporal lobe structures, including the hippocampus, the parahippocampal area, the perennial area, and the intrahinal area, causes deficits in declarative memory, non-declarative memory, intellectual functions, and perception. The researchers hypothesized that if the task does depend on memory, then the rat's performance may be impaired depending on lesions created on the hippocampus or perennial cortex. The researchers conducted 3 experiments studying simultaneous oddity discrimination, visual discrimination, and eye-tracking oddity discrimination. The researchers hypothesized that if the task does depend on memory, then the rat's performance may be impaired depending on lesions created on the hippocampus or perennial cortex. The first IV in Experiment 1 was the type of impairment. This included hippocampal lesions, perennial lesion, and the sham group. The second IV was the ambiguity level, either low ambiguity or high ambiguity, and the DV was the preference to odd object. This was the percentage of time exploring odd object. In Experiment 1, the participants were rats. They also did a 5-minute trial with 1-minute intervals, and this is where they measured the DV of the percentage of time where they looked at the odd object. There were 3 Lego pieces constructed, and the rats were expected to prefer the new object when compared to 2 identical objects. After the 5-minute trial, in a low ambiguity condition, the sham group preferred the odd object 37.4% of the time. The perennial group preferred the object 34.4% of the time, and the hippocampus group preferred the odd object 32.8% of the time. After the 5-minute trial, in a low ambiguity condition, the sham group preferred the odd object 37.4% of the time. The perennial group preferred the object 34.4% of the time, and the hippocampus group preferred the odd object 32.8% of the time.
Experiment 2 evaluated visual discriminations in rats of a sham group and with hippocampal and perihinal lesions. The IV was the discrimination task of stimulus pairings of black and white high-contrast patterns in Lego images from Experiment 1. The DV measured the number of trials to reach task criterion. In this experiment, the rats were placed in a tank with water divided by 2 arms, each with a stimulus from the pairings. The arm with the correct stimulus had a platform to escape the water. 10 trials a day were performed until the rats reached the task criterion of 17 correct pairings out of 20 for all 3 types of the stimulus pairings. The results of Experiment 2 showed there was no difference in the rats with the discrimination task of black and white. In the pattern pairing task, the PR group required more trials than the sham and H group. Pairing of images of Legos required more trials for the PR and H group than the sham group.
Created using Powtoon.